My name is Anna. I'm 45 years old. I have a family of 3, my husband Dan, who is also 45 and a doctor, and our daughter Emily, a high school senior aiming for medical school. My family has owned a hospital since my grandfather's time, and Dan works there. I'm not a doctor myself, but I serve as the vice president, handling the hospital's administration. The current president is my father, and the chairman is my mother. As an only child, Dan is planned to be the next president. However, despite his impressive title, Dan has proven to be a failure both as a father and as a doctor. Initially, Dan was very quiet and humble, perhaps feeling like an employee in my family's hospital. He was known as a doctor who was gentle and a good listener, which made him popular at the hospital. I was very happy to marry such a man. But as he began to work as a doctor and became popular among women, he started to go out more. I'm going to have drinks with colleagues again tonight, so don't worry about dinner for me. Again? You've been out every night lately. Let's at least have dinner together as a family tonight. Shut up. This isn't just any drinking party. I'm discussing current medical issues with senior doctors. But I guess you wouldn't understand since you're not a doctor. This is his favorite line to silence me. My husband often used this phrase to silence me. And so, Dan's reputation as a doctor began to decline after we got married. What? I'm the next president. You should do as I say, he often yelled at the nurses. Furthermore, your stomach hurts? Just take this medicine and see how it goes. Next, please. Wait! I also said I have a headache. Fine, I'll give you something for the headache too. Take care. He often refused to listen to his patients. Most complaints we received at the hospital were about Dan's attitude. As a hospital administrator, I was deeply troubled by Dan's behavior. I wonder if making him president sooner would curb his irresponsible behavior. I thought to myself, Dan seems to have an inferiority complex towards my family and relatives. Being able to work as a doctor here and being promised the future position of president is all thanks to Anna. I'm really grateful. He often said this in a self-deprecating manner. Dan's family is a typical middle-class household from a rural area. In contrast, my family owns a fairly large hospital. You probably think I couldn't have become a doctor or a president on my own, right? I never said anything like that. Gradually, Dan began to take his frustrations out on me. At times, he even yelled at our daughter. What's with that look? Emily, you're looking down on me just like Anna, aren't you? Thinking I'm just some guy who got a job thanks to his wife's family. Dan, nobody thinks that. Why are you being so defensive? Shut up. I wouldn't have been able to work if it weren't for you too. And if I weren't here, who would take over the hospital? You should be more grateful for my presence. Using his status as the only heir, he silenced me. Since there was no one else to take over the hospital, I thought that if Dan became president, it would satisfy his ego and calm him down, so I endured. Then one day, Mom, I need to talk to you. What's the matter? You seem serious. Emily had just come home from her prep school for medical school entrance exams and immediately spoke with a serious tone. Dan was out again, not at home. Sensing something was off with my daughter's demeanor, I urged her to sit down on the sofa. What did you want to talk about? This. Emily showed me her smartphone screen, and what I saw was unbelievable. Isn't this Dan with one of our hospital's nurses? And who is this child? What Emily showed me was a video about a minute long, featuring Dan, a nurse, and a child. To an outsider, they might look like a happy family. Dad was supposed to be at a conference for 3 days last week, right? I was studying at a cafe with a friend when I saw him walking by. I was about to call out to him when I noticed he was with a woman and a child I didn't recognize, so I impulsively took a video. Emily! I was furious at my husband for making our daughter take such a video. Honestly, I had suspected he was cheating, but with a nurse from our own hospital, no less. Her name was Lena, I believe. And she was in her 20s. So, while he was supposedly at conferences and study sessions with seniors, he was messing around with someone 20 years younger. I was so disgusted, I got goosebumps. And I had reached my limit with my husband, who did whatever he wanted, feeling secure as the only heir. Then, I heard someone come in through the front door. It was my husband. "What's this all about?" I stormed towards the entrance and was frozen by the scene before me. There, just like in the video I had just seen, were my husband's mistress, Lena, and their child, who looked to be just over a year old. I couldn't wrap my head around this sudden development. "What? Why are you here? And who's this child?" "You know Lena, right? A nurse at our hospital. And this child is mine and Lena's." "What?" "So, it's goodbye to you and Emily. We're getting a divorce." "What are you suddenly talking about?" My husband laughed off my panic. "It's not sudden. I've wanted to divorce you for a long time. Do you have any idea how miserable I've felt in this house? I've told you, I'm not looking down on you. That whatever look on your face is exactly what I'm talking about. Lena is perfect, though. She always supports me and is kind. She's the ideal wife." Lena stood next to my husband, chin lifted in triumph. "That's why, pack your bags and get out." I couldn't help but laugh, realizing my husband had forgotten something very important. "What are you laughing at?" "Nothing. Just wondering if you're really serious about this divorce." "What, trying to play games to keep me around? Save me the hassle and just agree to the divorce." "Divorce? You're funny. Dad, you can't run away now. Because..." Suddenly, my daughter chimed in loudly. "If you get a divorce, Dad, you'll be saddled with debt, you know?" "Huh?" My husband looked confused. Actually, Emily said what I was about to say. "What do you mean, debt?" "Dad, do you really not remember? Something this important. Didn't Grandpa pay off your med school loans? With a condition attached." "Oh. Remember now?" "Yeah." I can't believe he forgot. I was astonished that someone could forget such a crucial detail. The med school loan that was supposed to take years to pay back, the agreement was if you married into our family and became the future hospital director, it would be covered, right? Yeah, if you divorce Mom, you can't become the director, so you'd automatically have to pay back the loan to Grandpa. "I don't remember any agreement like that. Show me the proof." This man thought he could deny everything and get away with it. But what a disappointment he is. Did he really think such an important agreement wouldn't be documented? It's there, the contract. My parents have it safe at home. Did you really forget that too? Damn, really? Lena, looking worried, asked my husband. Hey, what does marrying into the family mean? Isn't the hospital your family's? That is. My husband was panicking. Had he been lying to his mistress too? I decided to enlighten her. Sorry, but he married into the family. The hospital belongs to my family. What? That's terrible. You lied to me. You're the worst. Lena must have thought marrying Dan would make her the hospital director's wife. Lena, shaking my husband's shoulder violently, finally made Dan snap. Shut up. I never once said that hospital was my family's. What's with that tone? After all your bragging about being the next director and how the hospital would soon be yours. You were just being supported by your wife's family. Dan got angry at Lena's words about being supported. It seemed to be the last thing he wanted to hear. His face turned red with anger. Acting all high and mighty when you're not even a doctor. Neighbors are gonna start complaining. I was fed up with the two of them starting to argue, ignoring me completely. Glancing at my daughter, she looked disgusted, as if she was looking at something filthy. Not wanting my daughter to see any more of this, I intervened. Hey, I hate to interrupt, but we're not done talking here. What? What do you want? What is it? They both turned to me at the same time. Perfectly in sync, like a comedy sketch. While finding their ridiculousness amusing, I first addressed Lena. "I'll be filing for alimony from you." "Alimony? Go ahead. Dan has been saying he'd pay for it so he could marry me." Lena seemed unbothered. As if being sued for alimony was expected. However, it was clear Lena hadn't been fully informed by Dan. It seemed my husband had been keeping a lot of secrets from his mistress. I decided to enlighten Lena. "He doesn't have that kind of money." "What?" Dan looked down, staring at the floor. "But he's been working as a doctor. And it seemed like he was getting money from your family too. It's impossible that he doesn't have money." Since becoming a doctor, his spending has become extravagant. Claiming to study with seniors, he started splurging unbelievable amounts on clubs, watches, shoes, bags. "So what? It's my money, I can buy whatever I want with it." And who exactly has been using up their salary every month and taking salary advances? "Salary advances?" Lena exclaimed in a shrill voice, turning quickly to look at Dan. "Yes. Spending too much on luxury goods, his money vanishes into credit card payments as fast as he earns it." "So, all the gifts you gave me and the meals were all probably financed by his salary advances." That's why I said Dan has no money. He's practically unpaid for the next year. "A year's worth?" Lena screamed, while I felt a quiet shock. My daughter and I haven't had a proper meal out as a family for years, let alone received presents. When was the last time we celebrated a birthday? I felt hurt by Lena's words. But Lena, oblivious to my sentimental thoughts, was berating Dan like a small dog barking. "I've never heard of a doctor taking salary advances. Unbelievable." "The hospital's management is under my mother. Somehow, it's been manageable. Until now, we've put up with Dan's demands, not wanting to lose our only successor." "So, marrying him means I won't get alimony, and he'll have no income for about a year?" "That's what it looks like." Lena glared at Dan with a look sharp as a knife. While Dan was sweating profusely. Thinking this would make him give up on divorce, surprisingly, Dan fought back. "So, who's gonna be the successor to that hospital, huh? It's a fact there's no one but me. Your father's getting old and has been talking about retiring soon." Dan, as if playing his strongest card, was practically snorting in triumph. "See? You've got nothing to say back. That hospital is important to your family, and has been since your grandfather's time. You wouldn't just let it fail." Mistaking my silence for a lack of countermeasures, Dan grew even more arrogant. "If you were a doctor, none of this would have been a problem. But too bad, you're not." Dan emphasized not a doctor. As if being one was his pride. Indeed, it's a noble profession. But it infuriated me how he took for granted who allowed him to work without worrying about student loans. I was about to retort when my daughter cut in. "I'll take over." "Huh?" Emily caught her father's gaze and spoke confidently. "I'll definitely pass the medical school entrance exam on my first try and become a doctor as soon as possible. I'll ask Grandpa to hang in there a bit longer." "Emily." I was moved to tears by my daughter's determined spirit. "You, getting into med school on your first try? Impossible. You hate studying, remember? Even 6 years of trying wouldn't be enough." Dan laughed uproariously, as if watching a comedy show. I looked at my husband with disdain. "You really don't know anything about your own family, do you? Well, I guess that's what happens when you're busy making a new family with your mistress." "What did you say?" Dan stepped forward, closing the distance between us. "True, back when you used to spend more time at home, around when Emily was in elementary and middle school, she wasn't much of a student and didn't study much. But since starting high school, she's turned things around and has been working hard. All without you knowing." Emily, who was always smart from a young age, had dramatically improved her grades. And in the most recent mock exam, she received an A grade for national and public university entrance. "That's a higher level than the university you graduated from." "That's a lie." There's no way my daughter could outdo me. She hasn't been accepted yet. But she's going to become a better and more reputable doctor than you, Dad." At Emily's words, Dan began to hit his thigh with his fist. "Damn, you're looking down on me too, your father. That's why I hate this family." His behavior was like that of a rebellious teenager, and both Lena and I were taken aback. Dan kept hitting his thigh relentlessly. Feeling increasingly uncomfortable, I remembered something important. "Oh, there's one more important thing I forgot." I turned to my frustrated husband. "The successor issue is temporarily resolved." Dan stopped moving abruptly. Then, as if suddenly amused, he burst into laughter. I was startled. Dan's demeanor had changed completely. Apparently realizing that even without the successor card, we would be fine. He defiantly said, "It won't last." "On what basis do you say that? You really don't know anything. You're the one who knows nothing." I snapped back. "Our hospital isn't a community-focused hospital. Issues of hierarchy among doctors hardly matter to us." Despite working at our hospital for nearly 20 years, my husband had no real understanding of his workplace. Maybe it was for the best that he wouldn't become the director. Unaware of my disdain, Dan began to ramble. "Once I divorce you, I'll leave that hospital and start my own practice. I'll pay off the scholarship you guys covered for me and the alimony in no time." Dan's sudden declaration left both me and my daughter dumbfounded. "That's a great idea. Dan will definitely be successful." Encouraged by Lena, his main supporter, Dan looked even more confident. He and Lena were clearly not seeing the reality, and her mood immediately improved once she realized her dreams of becoming a director's wife might still come true. With these two at the helm, the hospital was unlikely to fare well. "How will you fund the startup?" That was the first problem. Dan, who had already been taking salary advances, wouldn't have any income for a while. Yet, Dan said confidently, "Doctors are trusted, so it's easy to get loans. I'm sure I'll find someone to lend me the money." Dan answered with the bravado of a child. "If you fail, you'll end up owing the scholarship, alimony for both of us, and the startup funds. Don't talk about failure. How much do you need to belittle me to be satisfied?" "I'm not belittling you. Risk comes with any venture, especially starting a business. Have you thought that through?" I feel like his mother. That's how unrealistic Dan's plans seemed. But Lena, desperate to become the director's wife, was all in on supporting him. "Anna, please don't say unnecessary things. Just because you're about to be divorced, is this your last desperate attempt? It's disgraceful." "That's right, Anna. It's less humiliating to step back gracefully." Despite all my concern, it seems my words don't reach my husband at all. I felt empty, left with a feeling of indifference. "One last question. Are you ready to take on the risk and still want a divorce from me?" I asked, looking straight into my husband's eyes. But Dan, as always, just smirked without a trace of seriousness. Annoying. "I will definitely succeed. So, let's get divorced." "All right." After I said that, Dan and Lena smugly looked at each other. And so, my divorce from Dan was officially finalized, and both of them left the hospital. The staff were shocked by Dan's sudden departure, especially since he had always boasted about being the next director. But since Lena also resigned, rumors spread throughout the hospital that they were having an affair and were forced to leave. Rumors do have a way of being accurate sometimes. I thought this as I looked over the documents signed by Dan through the lawyer. They were the agreements about the scholarship repayment and alimony. I have no idea where Dan's confidence that he will definitely succeed comes from, but I guess I'll just wait for the repayment. Then, I was informed by the lawyer that Dan's hospital had been completed. I was surprised. Dan had opened his hospital just a 3-minute walk away from mine, as if to compete directly. That's just too blatant. Due to its new building and the latest equipment, Dan's hospital was busy from the start, affecting the number of patients coming to my hospital. However, that success was short-lived. Gradually, the number of patients decreased, and now, the receptionist nurse looked bored and was yawning. Casually observing, our eyes met. Then she approached me.
Hey, what are you looking at? It's creepy. Are you trying to sabotage our business?
The receptionist nurse was Lena. She was helping her husband Dan, even with a child to take care of. I was just passing by. After all, it's built so close. Naturally, I pass it every day.
Anyway, stop staring.
Sorry about that. I was just worried because you looked so idle. I was wondering if I could really expect any money back. My apologies.
What did you say?
Excuse me then. I walked away from the scene. I really wondered if their business was okay. The reason for Dan's hospital's lack of patients was clear. It was because of Dan's poor reputation as a doctor and his attitude, as well as the rumors that he had betrayed my hospital, which had been providing medical care to this community for years. Most of the patients were elderly. Initially curious, they tried out Dan's new hospital but eventually returned to mine, saying they preferred it here. Hospitals are a service business. You have to think about how to be chosen by patients. I conveyed this to Dan in my mind, knowing his understanding of hospital management was likely lacking. Half a year later, Dan, whom I hadn't seen since our divorce, came to my house.
Anna, about the payment, could you extend the deadline?
My ex-husband looked frail and asked weakly. His hair was unkempt and his beard unshaven, showing his exhaustion. An extension? Can you tell me why? Willing to listen, I crossed my arms and responded.
The truth is, the revenue hasn't grown as much as I thought. The first month was quite prosperous, but
now it's deserted? As I said this, my ex-husband blushed with embarrassment and nodded. I told you so. At my words, Dan twitched. You said you would definitely succeed without listening to my advice. So, I won't allow an extension of the repayment period.
Why not? You can afford it, can't you? Delaying 1 or 2 payments shouldn't be a problem.
It's not about the money. It's the consequence of you betraying me, Emily, our family, to pursue your own desires. The value lies in you working and repaying on time. So, no. My ex-husband must have thought he could rely on our past relationship to get some leniency. But when that didn't work, he forgot his place and started making demands.
What? You haven't changed, even after our divorce. Always thinking you're right and belittling me.
But in the end, you're here because your practice failed, aren't you? Even a child could see who was right.
Shut up. It's not over yet. There's still time.
I almost burst out laughing at his line, like something out of a shonen manga. But laughing now would only start him complaining about being belittled again. I managed to suppress my laughter. I'm someone who will eventually succeed, he said before leaving. Years later, as my daughter Emily became a senior student without any sign of the debt being repaid, I sent a legal notice to my ex-husband Dan and Lena. Then Dan visited my home after a long time. He looked so different from the last time I saw him that I instinctively covered my mouth with my hand. The once proud man was now gaunt and slouched. And above all, he lacked cleanliness. A doctor shouldn't be this unkempt. I thought to myself, Anna, you were right. The patients didn't increase, and the business kept declining. Plus, Lena left me. Apparently, Lena, who once dreamed of being the director's wife, quickly took their child and left as soon as she realized there was no future in the hospital's management. Being a qualified nurse, she could surely raise the child on her own. I couldn't make enough to cover the startup costs. The debt just grew. Oh, that's tough, I replied, as if chatting with a neighbor.
So, I want to start over with you. You were right. I was wrong. Please forgive me.
He begged at my front door.
Stop, not here. If someone sees us, it'd be the worst.
What should I do? As I was pondering, the door behind me opened.
What's going on? Is there a problem? Oh, it's nothing serious. Just my ex-husband suddenly showed up, and I'm a bit troubled. You got remarried?
Yes, the man who came out was my current husband. He's also a doctor, but unlike Dan, he's a person of great character. Never belittling himself or acting subservient towards me.
That's right. So, getting back together is impossible. Work hard and pay back the money. I'll be waiting until you've finished paying. So, you're doing well for yourself again. You've probably forgotten all about me, huh?
Yes, that's right.
After all, you were the one who brought your mistress and her child and demanded a divorce. Have you forgotten?
It was years ago. Dan glared at me as if wearing a mask of fury.
Oh, the man who used to be Dad.
Emily appeared, having been drawn by the noise. I expected a touching reunion, but only Dan seemed pleased.
Hey, Emily, how have you been? Are you working now?
I'm still a student. About to graduate, though. Just like I said, I got into med school. Dan's expression turned serious instantly.
Really? You actually got into a national university on your first try?
Yeah, I did.
I told you I'd become something great, better than Dad. It's like I'm the only one who ended up unhappy.
I wanted to say that was exactly the case, but further comments might provoke him. I chose to remain silent. Then my current husband stepped forward. Please leave. If you cause any more trouble, we'll call the police.
Damn it, why is it always me?
Dan muttered as he walked away.
I guess this is really the last time we'll see each other.
I thought with certainty. Half a year after Dan tried to reconcile, I heard from the lawyer about him. Dan had finally closed his practice, deciding it was only increasing his debts to continue. Now, he was quietly working in a region with a shortage of doctors, where, due to the demand, the salary was significantly better than in urban areas. That's surprisingly sensible of Dan. Whether he had calmed down after closing his practice or someone advised him, for the first time, I agreed with his decision. My ex-husband would now be working solely to pay off his debts for a long time. I quickly forgot about him and continued living happily with my family.